This story begins with a girl named Momo who is at home with her father. Her father asks her to leave what she's doing and take some medicines to the pharmacy. Momo hears her father's words and indeed takes the medicines, heading to the pharmacy. However, before she goes, her father warns her strongly to take care of herself because he heard rumors about criminals kidnapping girls. Momo assures her father that she won't delay and will return immediately. She quickly puts the bag on her back and goes to the pharmacy to deliver the medicines. When Momo arrives, she takes some of the medicines for experimentation on herself. At this moment, a creepy old woman approaches her, screaming and warning her not to explode the pharmacy as happened in a previous incident when she was experimenting. Momo, frightened, gives the medicines to the old woman and quickly leaves. As Momo exits, she initially heads home but changes direction, going to the park to gather herbs. While happily collecting them, 3 criminals appear and kidnap her. Later, we shift to another scene, witnessing the king's wife giving birth to the heir. We learn that the king has 2 wives, and the first wife has a son, while the second wife has a beautiful daughter. 3 months after Momo's abduction, we find her in the king's palace, working as a servant, especially in the women's section dedicated to raising the king's children. This section is exclusively for women, and only the emperor and his sons are allowed in. We see Momo and her worried expression as she doesn't know the condition of her father, whether he eats or drinks without her. The sadness is evident on her face due to the drastic change in her life from being a pharmacist to working as a servant in the palace with a meager salary, as the criminals take a significant portion of it. At this time, Momo's friend comes to her to inform her about the mark on the paper. Momo helps her understand it, and her friend expresses gratitude for Momo's assistance. Quickly, her friend goes to her work. Now we learn that most of the servants in the palace cannot read or write, so they receive minimal wages. There's only one solution for Momo to increase her income, and that is to be exceptionally beautiful to attract the king's attention. However, Momo feels saddened because she considers herself very ugly, making it seemingly impossible to captivate the king. Her only option is to work as a servant in the royal palace. While working, Momo confides in her friend, telling her that there is a very handsome young man present in the women's section. Her friend suggests they go there to see him, as everyone praises his beauty. However, Momo rejects the idea, viewing it as trivial, and wants to focus on her work. Nevertheless, the handsome young man is indeed present in one of the rooms with the king's wives, where a doctor is also examining the king's son, who is very ill. No one knows what happened to the child, and the doctor is unable to help. Then, it is revealed that the king's first wife's daughter, from the second wife, is also critically ill with the same disease. If this continues, all of the king's children will die. The palace servants discuss this as a curse that has befallen the king's children, and Momo's friend tells her that it's as if the children are suffering from headaches, stomach pains, and nausea. Momo ponders these symptoms, and her friend dismisses it as superstition, saying there's no such thing as curses. When Momo finishes talking with her friend, she goes back to work, still contemplating the symptoms of the king's children. She realizes that the king's children might have been poisoned. Meanwhile, the king's wives, Leva and Juko, are arguing. Leva, the first wife, accuses Juko, the second wife, of harming her son because she has a son while Leva has a daughter. The argument escalates, leading to physical violence as Leva strikes Juko. Leva then accuses Juko of cursing her son to death, but Princess Juko insists that it's impossible for her to do such a thing. The commotion gathers the palace servants, and even the doctor stands before them. No one can stop the fight. Later, Momo is seen among the servants, contemplating the doctor's prolonged stay with the king's children. She wonders why he doesn't know the cause of the illness and speculates that there must be crucial information he is unaware of. Momo reflects on the symptoms again and formulates a solution to the problem. She contemplates how to send a message to the royal family about the treatment for their children. In the meantime, the handsome young man intervenes to calm the king's wives. Momo, feeling a strange sensation towards him, decides to write a message on a piece of cloth, ties it to a beautiful flower, and leaves it at the royal palace. A month later, it is revealed that the king's son has died, and his mother mourns deeply. However, Princess Juko's daughter survives because she received Maomao's message, warning about the poisonous face powder. The princess, grateful for the information, summons the handsome young man, named Jinshi, and asks him to identify the person who sent the message. Jinshi recalls meeting Maomao before and is summoned, along with other palace servants, to the advisor's office. When all the servants arrive at the advisor's office, they are captivated by Jinshi's charm, except for Maomao, who remains indifferent. She doesn't understand his intentions. The advisor, Jinshi, writes a message for the palace servants, instructing that the girl with a mole on her face should remain, and the rest can return to their duties. Maomao, realizing she can pretend not to read or write like the other servants, attempts to escape with them. However, Jinshi catches her, insisting that she stays. He then demands her immediate presence, angering Maomao, who warns him not to touch her. Reluctantly, she goes with Jinshi, fearing punishment. They arrive at Lady Juko's residence, where she warmly welcomes them and expresses gratitude for saving her daughter. Maomao feels embarrassed and tries to deny her involvement, but Jinshi confirms that she is the one who wrote the message. Lady Juko thanks Maomao and praises her, making Maomao uncomfortable. Jinshi questions how she discovered the cause of the illness, and Maomao admits that face powder was the culprit. She reveals that many girls unknowingly applied the poisonous powder, leading to her mother's death. Princess Juko confirms the truth, stating that she stopped using the powder upon Maomao's advice, and no one in the palace was aware of its toxicity. Jinshi, upset that he failed to notice such a crucial detail, questions Maomao further. She explains that she convinced Lady Leva to stop using the powder, emphasizing the importance of paying attention to everything to save the children's lives. Princess Juko, impressed by Maomao's actions, promotes her from a mere servant to the princess's assistant, changing Maomao's life for the better. The scene shifts to the royal soldiers, most of whom have died from poisoned food. They blame the cooks and villagers in the city. The news reaches Jinshi, who contemplates the situation before we see Maomao preparing her belongings to live with the princess, bidding farewell to her friend. In her way, Maomao sees Counselor Jangi and the girls admiring him a lot. Then Maomao asks him why he is here. He answers, congratulating her on the new job. Maomao gets upset with him and leaves. Later, Maomao reaches the princess and finds all the servants and the princess waiting for her. The head servant takes her around the palace to introduce her to everyone. Maomao asks them for help, but they refuse, telling her to rest instead. Maomao is surprised and goes to her room. The servants mention that Maomao's job here will be very difficult. In her room, Maomao is alone, and no one is with her. She is then summoned by the princess and Jangi. Jangi talks to her, saying that since she is a pharmacist, her task is to detect poisons in the princess's food. The previous girl here suffered greatly from trying all the poisons. Maomao is happy to hear that she will eat and test the poisons. The first dish is presented to her to ensure it's free of toxins. Maomao, with a strong immunity from her past experiments, eats without any harm. Everyone is surprised. Maomao then goes to the head servant and tells her about her past as a pharmacist, kidnapped by criminals and brought to the palace. She complains about them taking a large part of her salary. The head servant gives her a pitcher and asks her to drop it, saying she would pay for it. Maomao takes part of the salary and thanks her for her kindness. 2 days later, Maomao is angry for not having anything to do all day. During the meal, she discovers poison in the food. She is then summoned by Jangi, who is surprised by her behavior and informs her that the army has been poisoned. Maomao asks where the food came from, and Jangi replies that they are currently in the forest. She asks if the soldiers have forks and spoons, and he says no, as they make them in the forest. Maomao discovers something very important. She tells Jangi the location of the soldiers, where there is a large quantity of brinda flowers. These flowers release a powerful toxin when burned, and the soldiers burn them to warm the area. They also use the woody part for other purposes. Jangi is convinced by Maomao's words and asks her to create medicines in the lab. Maomao is thrilled because she loves making medicines. She tells him that if he provides her with all the equipment and items she needs, she will make anything he wants. Later, Jang Yi goes to his office and realizes that Momo is the only one who doesn't love him, despite all the other girls falling for him. The next day, the guard takes her to the lab, and the doctor looks at Momo with intense anger because she is taking his place and doing better than him. Momo enters the pharmacy and is delighted to find everything she needs. However, Jang Yi is standing behind her, asking her to make stimulants. Momo starts working and creates medicine shaped like cakes. She then goes to wash the dishes but, on her way, sees herbs and collects them. She forgets her work and returns to her place. Momo finds the servants exhausted because they consumed the stimulants. The head servant scolds Momo, but she also fulfills Jang Yi's request for medicines. The princess realizes that Momo is trustworthy and will do whatever they want. Jang Yi appreciates Momo for making the medicines. At night, one of the servants is shocked because she saw the ghost of Princess Leva. And thus, we reach the end of our episode.